Oh, no! No, not like this. You can't. Imagine this dark aura looking motherfucker, and he gets basically the Diddy allegations. This Isekai likes him young. I am fully convinced this Isekai is sponsored by baby oil after this episode. You make sure you drop a like, share your support, subscribe if you're new around your patrons, where you'll catch those full live reactions. So, following a group of characters that are unapologetically evil is always interesting, right? Because you can do things that you normally can't without it being like, well, that's sus. And because in this show, you're like, yeah, it is sus. Granted, does our MC actually like them young? Seemingly no, but he ain't beating the allegations, that's for damn sure. The only reason Chris Hansen wouldn't be telling our boy to take a seat is because he'd be dead before he could. The idea of like, oh, get some servants, sure. Children also makes sense logically because usually that is how it works in this type of time period and dynamic. You know, they would grow up to be servants until probably their death. And also it's easier to train them at a young age to do exactly as they're told so they never know any different. From an evil lord standpoint, makes sense. But they could have phrased it differently. They started that basically like we're on Epstein's Island and Diddy was watching, just licking his lips, thirsting over it. They started the episode with these two girls, and they say something about like, why are we even alive? And I'm like, oh shit, you know, like, or kind of like, what's even going on here? And throughout the episode, I'm waiting for the shoe to drop with them. I'm thinking what it's gonna be is that the one girl is just a psychopath, the one who looks very cheerful because, you know, it's. She seemed too happy for everything going on. And then, like, they slowly start saying, like, oh, they ate their mother. And I'm like, what the? What? But then you're like, oh, the mother sacrificed herself because they were obviously starving so that everyone could still eat. And then they start saying stuff like they haven't cried since their mother's death, which that wasn't really a red flag to me because I'm like, oh, everyone handles grief differently. And sometimes emotions get locked off until just randomly, right? But the idea that they were purposely trying to get killed was pretty heartbreaking because I think it was a very believable moment. They easily could have ended their own life. They could have refused to eat. They could have jumped off a cliff. There's a lot of ways, right? But the idea that they were scared to die but thought they should die. So the idea of like ending their own life, absolutely not. But making enough mistakes that an evil lord exiles you or executes you, yeah, they'll do that. And I like that conversation where they're disappointed in him for not being evil enough. Like, if you're an evil person, why aren't you killing us? Why are you showing kindness to children? You suck at being evil, my lord. Which kind of serves two purposes. One, kind of saying it how it is, but two, also hopefully will piss them off enough that they'll end up getting killed. And I like how he explains it where it's like, okay, yeah, but a good person will never kill. They'll always do what's right. Where, you know, being a bad or evil person, because that's how he aligns, right? He's on the evil alignment. You know, they're selfish. They do what they want to do. And I like the idea that we're not going the route of him being like, I'm cruel level evil. He's not like chaotic evil. He's more like lawful evil, if anything. But at the same time, people that he has and will eventually summon will be the maximum carnage, right? But it is very interesting to see that dynamic because for the first 15 minutes of this episode, flew by, mind you, but it's basically just them sitting like, okay, what are we going to do next? All right, we built our area to sleep in. Now we're going to build a clinic. Oh, we got the resources. We're going to summon a bug queen. What's going to happen next? It's very nice what they've done because they've, from the beginning, tried to establish this is not like your normal transported to an RPG or whatever. No, it's a tactical style game. And that means resource management, political management, all those different types of stuff. It's not just non-stop action, right? Like the action we saw, say, in last week's episode wasn't there just because it's a fight scene, but more so to show the intimidation of the evil side of the characters. And the idea that if you watch after the credits, there's like a 20-second teaser, not a preview, part of the episode, and these people meet up with us, and all they see is basically the type of dark aura that we normally see on Takuto as an MC. So that's interesting. I didn't think that was going to be a thing. I'm not sure if it will always look like that to other people until they're allied with us, but that's pretty freaking intimidating either way. They might just be putting it on for show, I don't know, but either way, it's fantastic because there's a lot that this show could do better, like objectively. Production, objectively could be better. I think because it's a one core, I imagine they're gonna have to slim some things down to fit it into a decent stopping point. But overall, it's doing everything right. And I think it's really interesting because at face value, a show like Overlord looks better production-wise. Like its general art style, a little more visually appealing to the masses. But I think people often forget that Overlord Season 1 was heavily clowned on for its animation. The 3D was not considered good when it aired, and a lot of times people bitched and moaned. And it still happened in later seasons, but as someone who watched Season 1 when it initially aired, like I remember the discussions, like it was heavily clowned on. Granted, is the art in that show better? In my opinion, yes, but it is really interesting when I see people say, if only the show had Overlord's budget, and I'm like, Are we remembering the same 3D Overlord that I am? Because and also, the general characters just stood around talking the exact same way they do. And to be honest, I do think the show has a very fun charm to its art style. One of the things that really caught my eye and I realized I like about it, when you think of stuff like That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime or Overlord, look at the two progressions of their civilization. Now, Overlord kind of starts and stays where it's at, but it's like castle, medieval, gothic horror design. Slime, fantasy village that gets built up into a giant city. What is this guy doing? Wooden village jungle gym museum thing. It's great. It doesn't go by the traditional look that you would assume an evil Overlord character or civilization simulator would be, and I vibe with that quite a bit. I won't lie, this is a top 5 show of the season at this point. Which, if you remember, I was like, you know, I like it for the first 3 episodes, but yeah, it's not going to be like among the best. And it's not going to get into my top 3 by the end. My top 3 is pretty locked. But I ain't going to lie, this is a top 5 of the season. And even if this had Lord of Mysteries level production, that wouldn't change. I very much like the show. I think it's great. I think it deserves a season 2 and 3 if I'm being honest. There's a lot to explore. But overall, very pleasantly surprised by this, but the Diddy party, they were not doing my boys any favor. Let me know your thoughts down below. What did you think of this week's episode? I know it's not going to be as hyped up as last week's Evil Aura, but to be honest, I enjoyed it just as much as last week personally. But your thoughts, leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around your Patreon, of course. It's where you catch my full live reactions and other exclusives, like I give video shoutouts to every single one of my patrons. So today we got Franklin Greenway, Hikari Lounge, Fletchbringer, So Logiki, Subject 3, Sarnik, Vesuva Granada, Gabby G, Attack Owl, Dude Guy Man, and we also have Bird Nest. So I appreciate the support. Please take care. You all have a good one.